he came in.
Today on the Digital Drive-In, we're talking about Pink Floyd's The Wall. The movie.
Whip it! And thank you for joining us, everybody, on another episode of the Digital Drive-In podcast. My name is Alex, and I'm joined, as always, by my psychopathic co-host, Garrett DiNardo.
Hi.
Psychopathic wife of a co-host. And of course, here on the Digital Drive-In, we like to talk about all of our favorite movies and what we like about them, what makes them so great. Isn't that right? What movie are we talking about today, Mr. Garrett?
Pink Floyd's The Wall.
That is true. It's actually just called Pink Floyd The Wall, which I think is a really weird title.
Oh, well.
Well,
Maybe they didn't want to have the apostrophe S because it's not fully their vision.
why didn't they just call it The Wall? Because that wouldn't sell as well as Pink Floyd, having their name on it.
It would only sell to Donald Trump if it was called The Wall.
We don't like to get political here, Garrett. Besides, everybody knows you voted for Mitt Romney.
What? I voted for a catcher's mitt?
Oh, no. And
I voted for Glove McCoy.
Damn it, I'm a podcast host, not a doctor. What is Pink
These are
Floyd
like
The
villains from
Wall?
Doctor Who. Sparkle Pantserson.
Oh my gosh. Look out. It's the Master. That's an actual villain from Doctor Who.
Well, yeah, that's great.
Come up with a better name than
Moisturize me.
that. Oh no, that's one for the sound bites. What is Pink Floyd's The Wall, Garrett? What are you laughing at?
It's a 90-minute music video, basically, of a concept album about a man who does not have a father and grows up being a mama's boy, and he builds a wall around him and he becomes somewhat successful, but it doesn't really fill the void within him. So it's a contemplation as to whether he should wall himself away from everyone or try to break out of it and do what it is that he wants to make himself happy. So it's not supposed to be completely depressing or like really sad and dark, but apparently that's the way the movie went with it.
Right. Well, I always found this album to be pretty dark and kind of depressing. Even without having seen the movie, I took it as this like abuse story as well.
Right.
I don't know about you. Perhaps maybe the stuff with his mother wasn't exactly healthy, but I don't know.
I don't know, man. It seems like a normal childhood to me. Mother's gonna put all of her fears into you.
Pretty much. Well, why don't we dive right into it? What's the album that this is from? What's the concept album called for this movie?
The Wall.
I never heard of it.
Never heard of it.
How do you like that?
That's my line.
I was gonna say, how do you like me throwing that right back at you? Right back at you, bitch ass.
Are you okay?
Threw your bitch ass into a wall.
Slap that cock out of your mouth and then start talking.
Oh, Garrett, do you like Pink Floyd?
Yeah, Pink Floyd's probably one of my top 5 favorite bands of all time, I'd say.
Well, yeah, I hate them. I have a line. Dude,
they're made of cheese.
Yep, they're pretty good.
They're like a woman with a fat ass.
She's got a great ass. Should we do Heat at some point?
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, you got to do a Michael Mann movie.
Let's do Bowling for Columbine instead.
A Michael Moore movie?
Huh?
You can do it.
I don't know what you're talking about. Never heard of him.
I'll be over here playing my Marilyn Manson.
So what attracts you to Pink Floyd as a band, do you think? Because for me, it's
they're sexy as fuck.
What now? God.
I mean, what attracts me to them as a band, some of it is the psychedelic, that like the structure of the songs, with it being a concept. A lot of their albums are more conceptual, and they like follow a specific theme.
Yeah, or bleed into each other too with the different
Yeah,
songs.
but it's very experimental. I mean, not just the fact that like maybe the time signatures are odd, but like they even experiment with like different forms of sound and different like musical instruments that were new at the time, like with some of the keyboards and stuff. Nick Mason is a really good drummer. He's not necessarily flashy, but some of the decisions that he makes for his songs and then the fills, not just when he uses the fills, but what he uses as the fills, are really cool. I wouldn't even necessarily say that their voices are necessarily like extremely professional, but they're very distinct. And I think that
Right.
comes across. It's the topics that they discuss is very interesting. It's really a whole package. It's like they do really well live, they do really well in the studio, they write
They're
really well,
incredible
they
live.
play really well. Yeah.
Not that I've ever seen them, but I've seen like videos and stuff, and it's always a spectacle.
Right.
It fits with what kind of a band they are and the kind of music that they do. You can't just go up on stage and perform it. You kind of have to make it a spectacle on the show.
I mean, for a while, even their laser light show for their concerts would go around by itself and tour, and people would go and pay and see to see that.
I mean, I would. It'd be pretty
It's
cool.
actually pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, about the same for me, honestly. Like you said, it's a really experimental and kind of unique stuff. So I was always attracted to the whole album concept. It's kind of like concept albums are kind of like the film of music, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense. Where they tell a complete story. You can't really hop in for the most part and listen to sections of it. You kind of have to do either the direct singles, like for this one, Comfortably Numb, I guess. Another Brick in the Wall Part 2, even though you kind of need all three of those songs. Part 1, Happiest Days, and Part 2 as a triple smack to get the full effect, I think. But I always liked how you kind of have to sit down and listen to the whole album to appreciate it. But I don't know, maybe not at the same time, because I do often listen to a couple of just little sections like that. I like how it has continuity throughout the albums and all of that. Like Run Like Hell has the general like line, I guess, the guitar line. But it's much, much later, much past Another Brick in the Wall and all that. So it's just cool shit. It really is. I think it's fun to listen to, fun as hell.
I definitely agree.
That sounded kind of condescending. I don't know. I definitely agree.
I mean, but the thing is, I really, it probably sounded terrible, but I actually meant the sentiment.
No, you didn't. You meant to offend me, Ash. Yep. But it being a concept album, like you said, it plays with a lot of themes. I think Pink Floyd in general does. Obviously, like Dark Side of the Moon is like a mental illness kind of album. At least that's what I get from it.
Yeah, because a lot of that was based on Syd Barrett.
Right. Who you haven't seen Legion, eh?
No.
Do you own it?
Stop spoiling shows.
The character, one of the lead characters' name is Syd Barrett. I'm pretty sure that's what her name is. Certainly
when they
Sid.
say it, does she touch her nose? Eh?
She might.
Know what I mean, governor?
I don't know. Anyway, this isn't the Dark Side of the Moon podcast, but we could probably do an entire podcast on Dark Side of the Moon.
Well, then we also have to do Wish You Were Here.
Yeah, I know. We should just change this to the Pink Floyd podcast. That's it. No more anything else. No more movies. Nothing. Just Pink Floyd. We'll talk about one song per episode.
We'll just play clips.
Like today, let's talk about the first song on Dark Side of the Moon, which is just literally like a heartbeat. That's it. Not even breathe, like the intro song. So Garrett, what do you think of just the heartbeat sounds? And then a lone woman screaming at the end, and then it cuts off.
It's just like life, man.
Yeah. But of course, like that one has the themes of mental illness. What kind of themes do you get from The Wall? Listening to the album, say, did you listen to? Well, first off, I guess I should ask: did you listen to the album first, or did you see the movie first?
Oh, album first.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know there was a movie for the longest time.
Realize there was a movie for a while.
Yep. But so then in that case, what kind of themes do you get from The Wall? I mean, you kind of said it a little bit off the top, but we could dive into them a little bit because it does also relate, I think, to the movie, and we can talk about if they're represented very well in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is like inadequacies. There's questioning of self. There's like introversion. Like feeling alienated from everyone, regardless of what situation you're in. Stifling of creativity from educational and authority figures, which I would imagine Britain during the time would be very much so like that with people who are wanting to think outside the box because they're very much authoritarian. I mean, that was just some of the things. That you have specific ones in mind?
Well, like I said off the top, too, abuse in a lot of different ways. I mean, the movie brings a little bit more of like substance abuse, I think, into it. But like you had said a couple of lines from it, but like the song "Mother" kind of breaks down into after, I guess, Pink's father dies. She kind of keeps him safeguarded like a little too much, which I think kind of builds a lot of anxieties into him and all that. In a sense, it kind of has a mental illness aspect to it as well. In a not as like I'm going crazy like Dark Side of the Moon, but in a different way, I think. I don't know if you feel that.
Yeah, it's sort of like he's developmentally challenged because of the fact that he was never really allowed to be much of a kid. And so he was just kind of like stuck at a certain age.
Right.
So it's like he couldn't progress along with everybody else. He didn't build the social structures because mom didn't allow him to fail. But then at the same time, he was so close to her that all of her insecurities and all the things that she couldn't do becomes the things that he can't do or he can't be.
Right. Maybe on top of his own things as well.
Right.
And perhaps he's so afraid of like I don't know, death, kind of afraid of being like his father in a sense that he's
well, it makes me think of it makes me think of like a baby bird that is never kicked out of the nest taught to fly. It's always grounded. Even though it's already there, it just doesn't have the confidence to even try it. Therefore, it always thinks it's grounded. And it's like, it's interesting, even though the guy becomes extremely successful with his band, he still can't appreciate or have any kind of social interactions with people because all that's still inside of him.
And it sort of leads to a detrimental breakdown because of that.
Right. And then he starts imagining himself as being like this dictator.
Yeah, like almost like a fascist leader. They're doing like
right
new Hail Hitler kind of symbols with their arms and all of that. Almost looks like the Hydra, first half of the Hydra symbol.
Yeah, which is crazy. They like created that symbolism, and then after it came out, white supremacists took that over as their own. Like, thanks a lot, jerks.
Yeah, you ruined Pink Floyd, assholes.
I don't think even white supremacy could ruin Pink Floyd.
Not at all. But it's always interesting when the white supremacists adapt stuff like that, because more often than not, like Pink Floyd probably hates white supremacists, and that kind of vision of that was a little against them, not like advocating for it.
Right.
Whatever. We could do a whole white supremacist podcast if you want to talk about how much of fuckheads they are.
If you're that would be big in the South.
Yeah, I know. If you're the one listener out there listening to this podcast and you're a white supremacist, I'm perfectly fine having no listeners on this podcast. So, actually, Garrett's black.
His address is.
So all these kind of themes, and there's obviously tons and tons more that we're missing and that we're not talking about. I think this is one of those albums and that art essentially where people can take different feelings from it. But do you think the stuff we talked about was represented very well in the movie, or do you think that in watching the movie, did you develop any more themes at all? Did anything you didn't get from the album present itself, or was it maybe too explicit? I know there's a lot of questions, but
I think that when it was more subtle and you had to read into it, it was more powerful than and I'm talking about maybe more of the animation sequences, which are almost surrealistic.
There's one scene in particular. I don't even remember the song that it's over top of, honestly, but it's the two plants doing it. It's like, wow, I wonder what the symbolism for this is.
Right. And it's like, I think that those visuals are way more powerful than the live action stuff. Not that there's anything wrong with the live action stuff.
Sure.
Like kind of like when he's younger and like the war stuff is all right. It's fine. But it's like the kind of the rock star persona was really strong and then the animation was really strong. I didn't necessarily liked it when the main character was singing the songs.
Yeah.
Because he's not Roger Waters. And I think that kind of took a little bit away from it.
I would agree.
But again, it's not like so detrimental that you can't get the point, you can't enjoy it. It's just like little negatives or little things that stick out, especially after watching it multiple times. I mean, it's very much a cult film, I think.
I agree with you. I think, in some ways, I think that the animation too is more powerful than, or more interesting, I guess, than some of the live action stuff. I think the best example of that is, for me, is Goodbye Blue Sky. I really, really, really love that sequence.
Yeah.
And it's fucking like the what would you be, like an iron eagle? Or what's the bird you think supposed to be?
Yeah, sort of like an iron eagle, something like that.
Because like it comes down and it rips the town out, like it's stealing the people from the town or whatever. But then it like creates all the graves from it and all of that. It's really interesting and kind of haunting stuff to go with that song. And I love that song. That's one of my favorites on the album, actually. I love the extended line. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
The really, really long line. I just love I love that cadence kind of breaks from its norm in the song. I don't know.
I also like it the end of the film where the judge is basically an asshole with balls.
Yeah. In the trial. And it almost looks like he's gonna shit on him at one point.
Right. I mean, what great visuals.
Yeah. Well, it's like they're all
immediately get the
all
feel.
over him. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So I guess we can jump around in this film. I think it's a little hard to talk about it narratively. I don't know if you had this idea, but I was kind of thinking we could just, talk about Pink Floyd and then also talk about like the album and all that. But that ending sequence is awesome. The trial. Like, do you think is he supposed to be dead at the end? Is he supposed to die with Comfortably Numb? Is that kind of the general idea?
I mean, it seems like the movie especially goes towards that direction because kind of like after he has the medicine, he starts like tripping and like his life is kind of like flashing before his eyes, which is what he's being judged over. And I mean, I definitely think that that's a high possibility to read into it.
Right. Because that song's like wicked on the album. Like it comes out of nowhere and it's just so different than everything else. It's almost like Broadway.
Right. It is. Yeah. Very theatrical.
Yes. And which is awesome too. Because it's all Roger Waters singing, right? Is it? Or does Gilmore do it?
I know some songs have different singers, but I am not quite sure.
If it is all him, especially on the album, like you could really tell what different, I guess, quote unquote, characters come in to judge him just by like the way that they're singing and what they're singing about. But he takes almost different tones with each voice that he's singing in. It's really cool. And a lot of the...
Well, I know Gilmore does some stuff.
Yeah. I wasn't sure because Gilmore, I think, does At Least Wish You Were Here, right? I almost feel like it's like a Lennon McCartney where they took whole albums, but I don't know.
Right.
I have no idea. I'm just spitballing. I love Pink Floyd, but I don't know like all the backstory and all that. They sound a lot alike too sometimes.
Well, and it's harder too with like new stuff because they tour separately and they're not like together as Pink Floyd anymore.
Right, but they're still all playing the same
So
stuff.
there have been like entire concerts where it's just like Gilmour singing everything.
Yeah.
But that's obviously not the way the album was. So I don't
I would
have
love
any
to
like.
see Roger Waters perform the entire Wall. That would be incredible, wouldn't it?
Yeah, they have. I think they have a Blu-ray of that.
They do, yeah. I mean, I'd like to be there in person, but that'd be pretty sweet.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Another big theme, I guess, that prevails throughout the film, and especially again going back to the trial, is this is almost like women as snakes or something. I don't know what you get about that.
Even a portion of it made me think of like a praying mantis, where after they have
Sure.
sex with them, they bite their head off. It's
Right.
like that predator prey type thing.
It's almost going to be, because especially when the song talks about, or Mother talks about, like, Mama's going to check out all your girlfriends for you and won't let anyone dirty get through, kind of thing.
Right.
It's like
and run like hell too.
Sure. Yeah.
If they catch you in the back seat trying to pick her locks, they're going to send you home to Mama in a cardboard box.
Which in the movie too, there in the back seat is a little interesting. I forgot about that part.
Yeah.
But it's that was fucked. When I watched, I was like, whoa, they actually went there with that. But you'll have to watch the movie to, if you haven't seen it, to know what we're talking about. Because I don't. Yeah.
It's the 70s, man.
Yeah, fucking race mixing. Oh God, that's not at all what I'm talking about. Anyway.
No, I meant the exploitation where you could be a little.
What, where you could show practically a rape and also a gang beating of a black man? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But at the same, I was gonna say at the same time, like it adds different layers of meaning to it, but I guess it's all just lending to the fascism element, like that white supremacist element. But this came out in the fucking 80s, man.
Did it come out
still
in the 80s?
This was 82, I think. We're still dealing with that shit
82.
though. The album's in the 70s, I thought, but the movie was
maybe that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, but the praying mantis thing was kind of like, because I'm assuming at some point his mother either probably dies, which kind of leaves him on his own to like fend for himself, which
just like Anakin Skywalker.
Sure. Exactly like that. Yep. All the way. Completely. They're the exact same movie, really. This and Attack of the Clones. There's no difference.
What a fucking hack George Lucas is.
Ripped it off from Pink Floyd of all places. God.
Anyway.
You fucking derailed my anecdote. I don't even remember.
Oh.
No. Bitch. I'm kidding. I do remember. But it's like she dies, I guess. And because he's never been on his own and he's never have to kind of experience that, it also kind of lends to his breakdown, but maybe also his untrust of women. I guess his mother, again, instilling all the fears, maybe was afraid that all the dirty women would like do him wrong throughout his life. Because there's a lot of times where he's tempted by like people who are like literally just wanting to fuck him, and he's like, "Nah, I'm watch TV." Which I don't know. What do you think about that scene? Well, obviously, young lust leads into it as well, but
yeah, I mean, it's like the showing like his interest and disinterest, like waving back and forth. To me, like it explains that as a person, he can't figure. And so it's like at times he thinks he wants something, and then at other times he doesn't want it, and he'd rather pay attention. And it's almost like whatever it is that comes up and happens, he wants or needs the opposite of what's happening.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting too, like when he finally flips out and starts like throwing everything and breaking everything, that seems pretty real. It's like I like the way that's displayed on screen. And then how when everything is broken into the pieces, he still tries to lay everything out and put his life in order, even though it's completely destroyed.
Sure.
So it almost has that like addictive personality of like someone who takes drugs and knows that it's bad for him, but they can't stop it. He's just kind of like along for the ride, and whatever happens, he has to deal with it. And I think it's interesting that they portrayed the character in that fashion.
Yeah, definitely. And I didn't think about that either. I like the idea of when he destroys everything of him, when he puts it back together, trying to just get back to normal, even though it's just going to happen again. Because he's even... You go.
And kind of one of those things that where, like, once his mother broke him, no matter what it is that he did, he couldn't be the same that he was before.
Right.
You know, even if it appeared to be similar and all the pieces were there, she did irreparable harm. And I think that if that is one of the things that they were going for, that's an interesting viewpoint, because I kind of even agree with that.
Honestly,
you can tape it
when
back
I listened
together.
to the album the first time, that was what I got from it, was the irreparable harm, but trying to repair it and not being able to.
Yeah.
I mean, the first time I listened to the album, I didn't think that he died or anything. I thought that the trial was kind of him moving past everything. Almost being like tested. Here's your entire life and everything you've been led to believe. I guess putting all of that on trial. And then, of course, ends with the breaking of the wall as he gets free. I guess that's more of kind of the happier ending you could think of for it.
But isn't this the album where the end line and the first line of the beginning of the album actually connect, and it's like a Mobius strip where it just keeps happening again and again and again?
It might be. Dark Side of the Moon ends, the last song ends with, and the first song starts with a heartbeat as well.
Yeah, that's the heartbeat, but it's like this is the part where, and then at the beginning it says "We come in," so it actually connects to like if it's on a record player and you're just playing it over again. Well, I guess you'd have to flip the record. It would make more sense, I guess, with MP3 or CD where it just repeats.
What's the first song called again? It's not In the Flesh.
I didn't actually listen to the CD. I mean, I did previously. I haven't listened to it lately.
Oh, maybe it is. I don't know. I thought it was Dark Side that did that.
Well, Dark Side does the heartbeats, yes.
Yeah.
But this one specifically has like lines that only make sense if it's played last to first song.
I'm looking it up right now. Yeah, the last line of Outside the Wall is "Isn't this where?"
Yeah, where we come in. Yeah.
But the first line of unless it's just in the in like the
it is. It's just in the dialogue. It's not like lyrics.
Okay, because the first lyric of the album is "So yeah,
right.
Might like to go to the show." Yeah. So what does that mean then? The repetitive motion of it. You try to break it down a wall, but you can't do it. They just keep building it back up. The irreparable harm again.
Yeah, I mean, you'll have to pardon me. It's like Twin Peaks. Where it's when someone when someone tries to change something, you're messing in a domain that you do not understand, and the change doesn't actually fix something. It might change something, but it's bound to repeat regardless of what happens, you know. And I think it's like the Mobius strip is like that, the infinity symbol,
baby.
Yeah, where it's like it just bends back into itself and you repeat the same experience again. And I just think that my take for it anyway is that's what that is saying, is that
that's just because I'm an optimist, though.
You broke down the wall. Yeah, I'm a realist. You broke down the wall and you did the stuff, but it's still part of you. It's still who you are. You're not. People don't really change, you know.
Sure. Of course, he brings Twin Peaks into it too.
Of course.
For some reason, the only thing I could think of
Lynch avatar,
because I listened to Dark Side on my way somewhere. I think it was to class. Yeah, it was. And then I watched the movie when I got back. And I just thought of the entire time when I was listening to the music that they were they feel like the David Lynch of music, other than David Lynch's actual music. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't know.
You know, Kubrick wanted them to score some of his movies.
What do you think that would have? Do you think you would have liked that?
Well, the thing is, I think they didn't want it because he was notorious for editing things the way that he wanted them, and they didn't want the stuff broken up, so they declined to do it, even though they were respectful of who he was and what he wanted. So
yeah,
I could understand
who really just want pure vision.
Right.
Two people who want Final Cut.
Right. It just wouldn't work.
Cut.
So but it's interesting. In A Clockwork Orange, he has one of their record albums in the background. So that's cool.
Right. Which one is it again?
Adam Hartmother, I think.
Okay, yeah. The themes probably relate as well to Clockwork Orange in some way.
Yeah, I think he was thinking about using some of Metal in the Stargate sequence, which would have been awesome. Somebody actually went and like edited some of it in, even though it's not what he would have put, but it's just kind of cool. There's parts that do kind of fit.
Yeah.
It
would have been interesting, but
whatevs.
Only if they line up, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy with what both of them did.
Both of them, yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Make me a sandwich,
bitch. I'm going to slap the banana right out of your face.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
Now, one other thing I caught, and I don't know if it's just crackpot, like trying to find
was chlamydia,
like an unpop. I did. Yes, it's unfortunate. It burns. But obviously Pink is married at the start of the film, right?
Right.
And eventually his wife leaves him. Well, fuck somebody else. But the first time there's nudity in the film, I believe, is when his wife comes in and like strips for him or whatever. But it's not shown. The only other time there are nudity is when it's sort of in a negative connotation. So it was something I picked up on maybe it was used in that kind of way. Whether it was Pink's wife cheating on him or young lust in general. It's kind of, anytime there's nudity, it felt like it was met with sort of, I don't want to say anger, but kind of like scorn, yeah. It was using it again in a negative way rather than in like loving or even remotely sexual in a way. It was only one when there's infidelity going on, or two when young people are getting high and drinking and like throwing themselves around kind of stuff.
Yeah. Groupies.
Sure. They are groupies. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe do you think that's just a weird shit that I caught? Or is that like legit?
No, I mean, I could see it. I mean, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. Well, maybe it has to do in with some of the other themes of sort of, it's almost repressed sexuality in some ways from Pink.
Right. Apparently it pays to be a security guard.
Right. Oh, although when she goes down on him, I was just picturing his face as the guy from Samurai Cop.
Yes.
Bingo. We should do Samurai Cop at some point.
I'd be okay with that. I got it on Blu-ray.
We were talking about how both Stanley Kubrick and Pink Floyd are kind of people that want Final Cut. I think I mentioned. Bam, segue. There's a song from the Final Cut in this album, and I forgot about that, and it completely confused me.
Right.
What do you think about that?
It just kind of shows how it's kind of mixing a little bit different than what the album was.
Sure.
Just as some of the songs are... Well, first off, I mean, the songs are in a different sequence in the movie than they are on the album.
Yep.
And then there are like different versions or different cuts, different edits. Obviously, we talked about there being a different lead singer in certain aspects.
Mm-hmm.
So which do you like more?
What's that?
Which one do you like better?
The album or the movie?
Yeah.
The album.
Yeah, I like the album better too.
The album is my second favorite album of all time.
What's your first favorite?
Well, I'm glad you asked. It's Rumors by Fleetwood Mac. Because I'm a basic bitch like that.
I thought you were going to say some Canadian album.
No.
Like some polka.
Some polka. We have different music other than that up here. You fuck. You know what's a really solid album? And I'm not even sure if it really even counts because it's a fucking greatest hits album, but the Tragically Hip, Your Favorites, is so fucking good. Even just like the way that it's structured and it bleeds into each other. Like the way that they structured all of their hits or whatever is really, it's got a nice flow to it. So there's a Canadian album that's really high on my fucking favorites. Dickbag.
There you go.
Is there any fucking song from Boise that means anything? Didn't think so.
I fucking hate
Boise's a big city,
music here, man.
You hate the music there?
It's
Why?
what's the
shit?
It's either like hippies or yuppies, and that's all of it's or religious music. Fucking Mormons around here banging pots and pans, talking about fucking a lot of women.
Oh, Mormons! I thought they were all Jehovah's Witnesses down there.
There are a lot of plain-looking bitches around here. Makeup hasn't touched their face in centuries. Got more cracks than my ass.
I'm leaving all of this in, and you're gonna seem like such a fucking misogynist. Who are you?
God. I probably shouldn't like keep saying this so loud so that my neighbors can hear. I'm doing a joke podcast.
I wonder if I can yell loud enough so that your neighbors know that it's not a joke and you're talking legit.
No, because I have headphones on.
No, because I have headphones on.
I'm pretty sure it didn't sound like that.
What? What? What else?
Hey, Bert.
What else is my favorite albums? I like Hotel California. That one's pretty good.
It was just
Welcome
you
to
naming your favorite albums
California. Such a lovely place. Such a lovely place.
There's plenty of room.
What about you,
On
Garrett?
a dark desert highway. We haven't had that spirit here since 1969. Ayo.
What's the year on the end of the picture in The Shining?
What picture?
The picture at the end of The Shining. What year is it dated?
Oh, isn't that like July 4th, 1912? Something like that?
We haven't had that spirit here since July 4th, 1912.
That was terrible. That's a terrible Jack Nicholson, by the way.
What? I wasn't trying to do Jack Nicholson.
We haven't had that spirit here.
And that's not a terrible Jack Nicholson?
Yeah, I wasn't even doing it. It's 1921. I looked it up.
We haven't had that spirit here since 1921. Bam, we made the joke again. What are some of your favorite albums, Garrett? Apparently we're doing that now.
I don't have any.
Yeah, fair enough. You hate music. We'll be together. Don't know.
Yeah, all my favorite it was like soundtracks to movies or video game soundtracks.
Yeah, like Baby Driver.
No,
Baby Driver soundtrack's actually pretty good though.
I don't care.
Wah, wah.
I like a bunch of music no one's ever heard of.
Wah, wah. You like a bunch of everything that nobody's ever heard of though.
That's true.
That's what you think about a lot. That's what you think about a lot of things.
Yeah. That's why I have a girlfriend no one's ever heard of, because she doesn't exist.
Her name is...
She goes to a different school.
You wouldn't know her. She goes to a different school.
Mm-hmm. I put lipstick on my hand.
You. Where the fuck are we in this podcast?
We were talking about the mix being different in the movie versus the album.
So, do you like the movie's mix?
Shit.
Like the... You already said it, but why? I'm kidding.
No, I mean, I like the album better, but I don't think the movie's bad.
Oh no.
I mean, some of it might just be I got used to the album before I ever saw the movie.
Sure. If anything, it fits, like the new mix fits really fucking well with the movie.
Yeah.
This one. And it fits like almost in some ways better than just straight the album would. Because I think the movie's going for something different in a way, and to do that, they needed to change a couple of things, which I also really appreciate from Floyd, to actually make the necessary adjustments to tell the story in two different mediums. It's kind of like they really, really cared about that product and that story that they were telling, that they wanted to to mix it up and ensure that it was told appropriately in both separate mediums. Yes, master.
Well, it's interesting because both the director and the band members don't really like this film that much.
No?
Nope. The director said it was the most expensive amateur film ever made, I believe.
Jeez.
So I think it was like they had disagreements about ideas of what the movie should be, or
Sure. I can imagine Roger Waters wanted to take control about like some of the creative aspects of it a little more than the other guy probably wanted. I
think
don't
that's
even
fair.
remember the director's name or know his name, unfortunately.
Alan Parker.
Alan Parsons. The Alan Parsons Project.
I was just thinking that's not the guy that did the Ghostbusters theme, is it?
No.
Alan Park Jr. or something like that. Ray Park Jr. That's his name.
No, Alan Parsons is a different band.
I know that.
What? No, you don't.
Yes.
No.
It's the Eye in the Sky. It is Alan Parker is the director of The Wall. And he I liked Angel Heart, and even Evita wasn't bad for a musical. So I did not like
seen any of his other movies.
Alone. I've seen 9 of his. 9 of 15, apparently.
To school, there were certain teachers who would hurt the students any way they could. Ha! Sorry, I just felt like singing a little.
No,
That's
do whatever you want.
That's the issue with music movies and musical movies, is that all I want to do, especially musicals, is just talk about the like. I just want to sing the music to talk about it, because like at the end of the day, well, I guess you could write essays on literal lines just stripped from this album, realistically. But the best course of action is just to go listen to the album. If you haven't listened to The Wall yet, I would advise listening to it before watching the movie. It's one of those, like, would you call it one of those life-changing albums? Like the first time you listen to it, it'll like change your life.
Yeah, I think so.
I'd get some good headphones, sit down, just dedicate an hour and a half. It's long, but there is a very distinct break, even if you wanted to split it in two. So I guess what are some of your favorite bits then from the movie or songs from the album? If you wanna, we can translate into just talking about it, almost not really superficially, but like just like favorite bits.
I mean, some of it we kind of already talked about.
Yeah.
Goodbye Blue Sky
is
fantastic. Like you said, the imagery and like how, it's an acoustic song, but there are shades of that song that gets really dark. I do miss in the album, it has a little kid that's like, "Look, mommy, there's an airplane up in the sky." And that's great, and I wish that was in the film.
So do I. But it also really fits in with the war theme too. So I'm not even sure why they didn't have it in the movie. Because like young Pink is playing with an airplane even and all that.
Right.
Yeah. I love that.
So I don't know if the director thought it was too on the nose and he wanted to visually show it or what.
That's such a happy song. And it's so fucking dark at the same time.
Right.
Like the acoustic bits are, and the chorus even is like almost major, I think. Like it's really, really bright. But then there's that like underlying, which is like, oh god, it's like
that
impending
synth line undertone. Yeah, I really like that.
Well, because it feels like, well, goodbye blue sky, right? Pleasantries and niceness are destroyed by, if you want to take it literally, by, I guess, war, and if you want to take it thematically, by everything else. Childhood innocence corrupted, maybe? Or that's more Mother, but Mother comes before Blue Sky on the album, but not in the movie.
Mother, do you think they'll try to break my balls? I
love the guitar solo in Mother.
Right.
When it kicks in. Of course, Mother's gonna help build the wall. In case you haven't noticed, like the last 3 or 4 weeks on this podcast, I've been like singing bits whenever we're talking about music. That was all a build up for me to do that guitar solo.
I knew it.
We were gonna do Green Room at one point. I think that was
playing a banjo.
I was building up for that actually, so I can go Nazi punks, Nazi punks, Nazi punks, fuck off. But you know, I take what I can get. My favorite song on the album. I already talked about Goodbye Blue Sky is my favorite, I think, scene in the movie, at least visually. But my favorite song on the album, it's also one of my favorite songs of all time, is Comfortably Numb. Mm-hmm. That song is so fucking good in literally every regard that's almost where I just want to end it, because I don't even know if I could dive into it all too well. I think it's just, if someone didn't want to listen to the entire album and they asked pick one song off of it then that perfectly encapsulates the album in its entirety, I think that would be the one for me.
Right.
It's kind of like, it almost feels like the climax of the entire album, I think. Even though it's not loud and bombastic, like I think it's certainly played like that in the movie as well. It almost feels like, because of how big I think that song is, pretty big, like popularity wise. So it's probably not me, like a madman on the side of the road spouting, "Everybody listen to Comfortably Numb! Come on, why isn't nobody listening to it?" It's like this is considered one of the greatest songs ever. But I think they even knew that going into the movie, because there's such like a quiet pause before it kicks in when he's like doing the drugs or whatever, and then Bob Hoskins breaks the door down or whatever, and he's like, "Holy fuck!" and then the song kicks in.
Right.
I think he literally says that because he sees them like dead or whatever.
I love Bob Hoskins, by the way.
I know. Why is he in this movie?
I mean, why wouldn't he be?
I guess. It's like, hey, it's Pink Floyd. This is 2 weeks in a row.
Hey, it's Mario.
We have a random comedic actor's cameo in a movie, like Dan Aykroyd in Temple of Doom.
I just hope there's a Paul Blart Mall Cop for this album as well.
Oh my god, dude! You did watch that video that I sent to you, right?
Yes.
Does it not, like, weirdly? It lines up so weirdly well, doesn't it?
It's like, I was just thinking.
Creepy.
I was thinking this can be easily explained away until it got to the piano, grass, and bird scene.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, somebody is playing a trick.
Yeah. But like, even when they go to for people listening, anyone, Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon syncs up perfectly with Paul Blart Mall Cop 2. Just so everybody's aware, there's a video of it that shows all of the best moments of it. Please watch that. It's hilarious. But like, I got it when they went to the convention and Money starts playing right when they step in. Like, that's wild. Or like when they're testing out the gun and it's like timed to the beat. Ding, 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 ding. It's like, holy shit. Or like emotional climaxes of that movie come at the same time as the Clips does.
Right.
It's crazy. I wonder, there's got to be a movie out here that lines up with The Wall, and it's called Pink Floyd The Wall.
That almost feels like the best way to end.
What do you mean?
That was like the greatest line.
Yeah, well, that's because I'm the greatest.
Unless you want to talk about musicals in general.
Not really. We can,
because I don't necessarily like them.
I feel like that's a bigger topic for like a actual musical rather than this.
Yeah.
Well, Garrett, you got anything else on Pink Floyd The Wall?
Nah, wrap it up.
Thanks.
It's my wrap-up sentence, y'all.
Fuck. Whatever. I'm done with this.
Everybody gotta go home now.
I guess we kind of did a little bit different of a podcast this week, I guess, because we talked a lot about one of our favorite bands and one of our favorite albums, and we had this nice little movie to accompany with it, I guess. Wouldn't you say? I would say that.
I would say that exactly.
I really just want to listen to The Wall now. Even though we just watched it, like, I do want to listen to it again now. Seeing it on screen and then listening to it, I think it helps with the two mixes too, just like feeds into each other. It's awesome. Love Pink Floyd. Really, really do. Really good stuff.
They're lovely.
Well, Garrett, if you got nothing else, I'll wrap it up then.
I'm okay with that.
As always, you can catch us down here at the Digital Drive-In every single week where we talk about some of our favorite movies and I guess music. I don't know. And what we love about them, why they're so great, why they, I guess, have a big impact in our lives as well. You can follow the show on Twitter at digital_podcast. You can also subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. Please do, where we upload all of our podcasts, and we're going to be starting to move into some additional videos and maybe other podcasts or other kind of news things. We'll see. We kind of have ideas, I guess. Find us on YouTube in that case at Digital Drive-In as well. You should see our logo pop up somewhere in there. I think there's links on both of our Twitters as well. Speaking of which, you can follow me on Twitter at Alex's Reviews, and you can follow Garrett on Twitter at Garrett Donardo. And we don't have a movie pick for next week. Don't know what it's going to be, but we'll talk about it next week. Sound good, Garrett?
I'm going down.
You got that
down to the drive-through.
No. Why don't you say a Pink Floyd themed goodbye line?
Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye.
Look, Mummy.
Bow, bow, bow.
Up in the sky.
Isn't this where